So, welcome to the next session here in this audience. So, it's already crowded, there are a few more. Come in, take a seat. So, my name is Stefanie Jerch. I'm product manager for Business Process Monitoring and Cloud ALM for Operations. And with me, I do have Mirko Langhorst. He's Director, Business Unit Manager from Redon. And together, we will now use the next 45 minutes to tell you something about business process monitoring. So, learn how you can monitor your business processes with business process KPIs. And I also do have a clicker, so keep that slide in mind, because there's something interesting I would like to show you a little later on. But in order to make sure that you know what is happening or not happening, we have an agenda. And now you can imagine we'll make sure that everyone is aware what is business process monitoring. So in a nutshell, we'll have a demo, and we will end with a Q&A. This is clear. But if you're now in a cinema, you know the curtains are opening, something will happen, there are chapters. You don't know what is happening, but you know it's the end, and you will see it over the course of the next minutes. So first of all, starting with what is business process monitoring. So business process monitoring is one of the capabilities which we do offer in the SAP Cloud ALM and the operations area. So it's on the business level, so business users are a typical target group. It is about providing you insights on the operational business. Meaning you look at the business process and you would like to learn, is everything running and healthy? So the process which you are using now at the moment. We are then supporting with some, we could also call it then key processes, performance and efficiency. We are here in that case working with pre-delivered content. So if you connect your customer landscape, which you can see on the left-hand side of that slide, then we are identifying what you are currently using in the system, and the results are then shown to you in the business process monitoring from a visualization perspective as KPIs. So these are the levels. And for these KPIs, we then are showing you, or you have the option to see disruptions. Disruptions can be everything, but our aim is to show you the situations and that you have the option with our alerting capabilities to react to these situations, so to define thresholds and measures. This is always a little individual from a customer perspective, because some customers say 10 is a critical value, others say, oh, don't bother me if it is less than 1,000 entries. Not at all interesting for us. This is our usual backlog. So there are things which you can then work on, and what is most important, where we are currently aiming to, and what we are having is integrated in the ecosystem. So we do have content, for example, for S4HANA, success factors, and it's unified one central location, because we don't have monolithic architectures anymore. And it's changing to cloud services. Nevertheless, you would like to have a central point of view. You have your business process, and this is starting here and ending here. And this process has to run, and you don't want to know how many services are behind the scenes. The point is, it needs to be healthy, and it needs to run, and you then need to react. How is it looking now? And with this, I would like to hand it over to Mirko.
So I think that's my part. So for the sake of the demo, I have to sit down, otherwise I will hurt my back, which is not good at my age. So let me start with the demo, just to give you an impression of what the current possibilities in business process monitoring look like today. Because, as you might suggest, we will show you what is possible right now and what you can expect in the future. So maybe that's new for some of you, but known to others. So I will just give you really a quick guide to get a better feeling of what it looks like in the system. So as you can see here, I'm now in the launchpad of SAP Cloud ALM in the operations area, and start with the tile for business process monitoring, which gives me first of all overview of the standard end-to-end processes that are already covered by business process monitoring in Cloud ALM. And for this demo, we just selected the design to operate process. What I would do as a customer, first of all, is select the scope. As you can see here, there's a variety of the different systems or managed components, as it's called in Cloud ALM. So today, I'm only interested in the S4HANA managed component. So I select that one, click on apply. and then I'm good to continue. And as I just said, I want to take a closer look at the design to operate process. So I just click on that icon, which then takes me to the overview of this process. You can see here how the entire process is broken down into different parts, and you can see a variety of different KPIs that are available as a standard in Cloud ALM. So that's what SAP delivers or makes available to you as standard KPIs out of the box as pre-delivered content. So as you can see here, we have the production orders overdue for release KPIs as an example, and the figure 124 for these KPIs here. So what I would do is click on that to make a deeper dive into that, so we can get rid of that for the moment. And here you can see that we have different order types. So now just when I start taking a closer look at this KPI. In order to drill that more down, I would now set certain filters. And for example, I could be interested in a specific plant. So in this case, that's my plant 1 DE. So I select this one, say OK. And as you can see, the graphics has changed. So there's only still one order type left, which is now relevant when I set this filter. And as an additional filter, I also want to choose another profit center. So I select one. I do not need to use the value help. I can also just say I start typing a couple of letters. So I know that by heart because I've trained it before the session. So I know the profit center is YB101, which is the consulting unit A, to have a clear name. So I also select that one, which again, first of all, changes the graphic a bit. And now it allows me to also go back to the design to operate page. And as you can see here, the KPI has changed. So there's another figure compared to the one that we had before, which is also due to the filter criterion. As you can also see here on the top of the page, the system just took over the filters that I set before. So next thing that I would probably want to do as a customer is set up a certain alerting so that I get notified whenever there's something wrong with the process or whenever certain thresholds are reached. So how do I do that? I can just go to the configuration part, go to the manage components where you would then find the KPI management. I select that one. And since I know that the KPI that I'm looking for is production orders, hopefully there's no typo in there now, overdue for release, I can find that here. I click on that, which gives me first of all an overview, and just by clicking on that blue arrow, I take a deeper dive into the KPI configuration, which gives me some basic information related to the KPI, but which also allows me to create events for that. So as you can see here, we've prepared that for the sake of this demo. We have an event which is called production orders overdue for plant 1010 and for the profit center consulting unit A. So that's the filters that I said before. And when we take a closer look at the event configuration or the event details, you can see that we gave it a name. It's relying on the data for my S/4HANA Cloud. We've defined some thresholds for a warning and for a critical status. And we've also considered the filters that I've mentioned before that you've seen during the demo. And we just set the toggles on for creating an alert and sending an email. So whenever the thresholds are reached, this will be triggered so that an alert is raised and that the person indicated here also receives an email. In this case, that would be Stephanie. So here again, when I go back to the overview page that you've seen before, you can also see that an alert has already been raised for this KPI. So I can just click on that and would then find the relevant alert. Here again, by just once more drilling a bit deeper down, you can see more details and also the concrete figures. So as you can see here, there's the number of 30. And as I've shown before, we set the thresholds to 10 for warnings and to 20 for critical values. Since we've already reached 30, the alerting was triggered and we have a red status. And so that allows me to get more details about that. to see what the current status is. And from here, I can also just jump to the relevant places. So here again, I could go back to the KPIs. And if I know that this is always the same filtering that I want to use, I can also just go here and adjust my view so that I do not have to set it up again and again whenever I access the business process monitoring in SAP Cloud ALM. So I will also do that. Click on Save As, give it a name. Not really creative, but let me just call it ALM Summit 2024. And I can also set that as default so that it's directly opened when I access the page the next time.
And now you can see it. We had a tiny issue with the view. All good.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what you can do today. Also, in a nutshell, that was a quick rush through the possibilities, just to give you an overview and an impression what this looks like. And yeah, next we would go back to the presentation. Now that you've seen the demo, sorry for that. And we are now at the next chapter, which you didn't know before, so that's a little surprise, or first surprise of today, which is related to customer feedback. So, as Stephanie said, I'm from Read on IT and therefore representing the partner and especially customers' view on that topic. And yeah, the feedback that we received from our customers when it came to business process monitoring is that customers are generally speaking very happy with that it's existing in Cloud ALM for operations. And many of the delivered KPIs are also working for customers, but the question that came up again and again is what it's about other KPIs. So they approached us with specific requirements, which are coming from different industries, for example. So just to give you an example here from digital manufacturing, there's a couple of KPIs that were mentioned. So, for example, related to incorrect material movements or open logistics orders. So what this is mainly about is, in many cases, for example, monitoring throughput times. So just to get an overview of what are the throughput times, because if there's a significant increase in throughput times, that's also an indication of errors in the process flow. And when Stephanie and I were preparing the session, that reminded me of the time when I was much younger and used to do vacation jobs, where I was just in a huge company, manufacturing batteries, so for example for cars, motorcycles, forklifts and so on, where I was working at the conveyor belt, and the process was that the batteries came on the conveyor belt. There was a huge grid at the end of the belt, and then our task was just to take the batteries from the grid, put some cords on it for carrying, put them in a carton, close that, put glue on that, put it on a pallet and so on. And so when, for example, just cartons were missing, the entire process was stopped. So which then caused delays. The entire conveyor belt had to be stopped. And that's actually what you want to find out using monitoring capabilities. So so that's out of the world of digital manufacturing. There's another industry where we discussed specific requirements for KPIs, which is from the retail business. So, for example, one of the KPIs that was mentioned is goods receipt to invoice posting, or here again an example of throughput times. So, for example, from order entry to ready for pickup. So that's a very concrete example that we got from a customer where they say this is a sort of click and collect ordering, where the order is placed, and then it needs to be seen to it that the products ordered show up in the relevant store so that they can be picked up by the customer. So all these are specific requirements that we received from certain customers. And on top of that, we also came up with a different problem statement. So just imagine that you want to also monitor data that come from third-party applications. So you know that all the extensibility stuff is mainly done on BTP or maybe with other means. The problem or the challenge with that is you might have an overall process, and somewhere within the process you have data that is stored or created in a third party or BTP app as an example. But you want to monitor that as well in order to make sure that your process is stable, or in order to find out if there's any disruptions in the process or something like that. So as an example, to make that a bit more tangible, we have just the example of using a weather app as an example, which might be interesting for your entire process when it comes to logistics and to planning delivery routes for trucks. So to make that even more precise, you would want to avoid areas with heavy weather conditions, for example. So if you have a delivery route for your trucks, and the app tells you there is black ice or heavy snowfalls, you do not want your trucks to take this route. And speaking in terms of KPIs again, one of the KPIs that might be used in that context is, for example, the efficiency of delivery routes or delivery route times and so on. But all that would require that you have KPIs which might not be part of the standard delivery from SAP. So yeah, since we were approached by many customers with the question of what does it look like in the area of custom-defined KPIs, we know there's a huge set of standard KPIs, but not all of them do really meet our expectations. So what I did is that I just took a look at the Roadmap Explorer, which I can recommend to all of you if you don't know that by now, and just try to find out whether there's anything on the roadmap when it comes to custom-defined KPIs. And next surprise of today, I just found two items which are both related to customer-defined KPIs. The only difference between those two is that one is related to non-ABAP-based KPIs, and the other one is for ABAP-based KPIs. So good news is there is something on the roadmap. Rumors say that it might be shipped even in the course of the rest of the year. Needs to be confirmed, but you know that it's on the roadmap. I've also put the links on the slide so you can check the current status of that and the status of the planning by SAP at any time. And yeah, whenever this has been released, you're good to also define your own KPIs. And with that, I would like to hand over back to Stephanie.
Thanks a lot, because I got a lot of questions in this area, and we are really working on this topic. And it's not just me, it's me standing here and having then colleagues and a team behind working on all the topics and preparing everything so that you can use the result. And some topics take more time, even if it is cloud or not. And this is now where I would like to use the momentum, because I guess most of you know these roadmap items, right? Do you want to raise your hands? Who has heard of it? Had questions around that? I can see one hand. Just one? Okay, but after that session you are inspired. So what I would like now to show you is where we are currently standing with this topic. So this is a lab preview, so please keep in mind there's always a disclaimer. I'm showing you now really things from our development. We are doing a lot of progress. We had hit milestones from our end, but I also need to ask you, we need a little bit more time till you can use it, because whenever we release something, we would like to be sure that it is the best we can do for you as a customer, and that it is a really package with value. So, disclaimers everywhere. I mentioned them now again. I will do it again, and it will be a running joke. So my session is a disclaimer session. So our motivation was for that topic is that we would like to react to such customers or to such feedbacks we get, the requests we get. And what we know and what I do know is, yes, there's a standard process, but sometimes there's a tiny additional attribute which is in, or it's how you read the data. That is always different. If you're thinking about industries, if we are thinking about add-ons, there will always be situations which I, as a product manager, really would like to help you with, but I can't, because the cloud with the standard content, we need to make sure that we are addressing a certain market and products and so on. But what I can do, or what we can do for you as a customer, is to be open. So openness, you've heard maybe of open telemetry, you heard a lot maybe about our inbound, outbound APIs and so on. So we are really trying to provide you the options to bring in what you need. So if it is something which we can't build, you will have in future, as per current planning, the option to also bring in your own KPIs. And now I'll show it to you. So no, this is not new, because now I'll take the demo chair. So it's not a hot chair, it's the demo chair. And now we can have a look in the system. Okay. So you've seen now the standard content, you've seen the processes, you've seen that there are defined steps and KPIs. And now in my environment, you should already directly see on the home one difference. Let's see, second click. I'll sign off. It's hid behind a feature toggle, so for the ones who listened to the keynote yesterday, I can only use that functionality if that feature toggle is active for my session. So from that perspective, I'll start it one more time. And now you see a difference, right? So we have now 5 end-to-end processes. This is just a placeholder, but this is new and this is nothing which you can find in production until we release it and say, this is exactly the functionality with the right maturity we would like to deliver to you around that. So I'm now going into my lab preview, and you can see here one to be continued placeholder. So we are in the cinema with the curtains, right? So to be continued is how a good movie ends, and there's a next movie afterwards, and you really would like to see it. And this is around a KPI, and here we took one of the digital manufacturing examples, exactly from the shop floor. And here I have to thank really the team around from the digital manufacturing area, because they did a POC with us. They explained us what is a typical challenge for a customer. So whenever you're in digital manufacturing, you have end-to-end processes, for example, but what is the critical point is always different. So is it the packaging? Is it that the tiles are dropping out of the machine and someone is picking them up and bringing them back? Digital manufacturing can everything from building a bicycle to simply making some ice cream and packaging the ice cream, or having some batteries. So it's really tough to have a standard KPI. It's always, the critical point is if you have space in your location, how large is the plant? And therefore we thought, okay, let's take shop floor, take an example which everyone can imagine. So if an production order isn't starting, follow-up steps are not working out. So imagine you have the first tile ready and it can't, or it's not ready, and the next machine is then standing still, and the other way around. And this is what we did now here. So this KPI is an own KPI. Where you can see it very easily is there is our usual namespace for customer-defined things. So you can see that Z in the beginning. So it's an own KPI. You can see it's seamlessly integrated into our UI. It's the shop floor orders which are overdue. And behind, we do have also data. Yes, this is demo data. This is clear, so not a real production order would have such a name. But it's data which is coming in regularly into our UI. So let me open that collection timestamp. And here you can see the latest set of data is we received roughly 1 hour ago in here. You have the same functionalities, so what we've not yet seen in the demo, and this is a live functionality, you can also adjust the graph. So in my case, I would like to see the graph, and deselecting the other one would be more meaningful. And you can adjust the graph. So it's not only filtering what you can do, you can also react and change it a bit. And also you can see that small asterisk, so if it is nice and if this is something you would like to access kind of on demand and not do all the time, you can also save it as view. We had an issue with the beamer, so here's where you put a name. So I'll just call it my view. You can say it should always open like this. Same problem? It's a fancy thing. Okay, you can see the result. I'll open the manage screen. I close pop-ups. I have a pop-up where you can change the settings, and we have a lovely application help where you can then also find instructions. So maybe let me open this one. So you have information on all the tiles here available, maybe mentioning this. So in case of functionality, you would like to learn more, you can always use our in-app help. You can search the help portal, the expert portal, and so on. So maybe this is a good point in time if the pop-ups are opening. Oh, good. Okay, so now you've seen this is really integrated in the infrastructure. I also have an alert, so if I'm now going to also the KPI management, searching for shop floor, opening the details for the KPI, you can see I can, on the same way, create an alert, use filters if I would like to do so. For my 8 records, filtering was a little bit challenging, so I decided to just use thresholds in here. And you can see it from here that you can also jump to the alerting. So only the KPI is something new. The framework is the same. So what you know is in place. What is behind, and this is maybe a little bit more of the magic. So as mentioned, we were working together with the colleagues from digital manufacturing. And in the digital manufacturing, we have these production orders which are overdue. So this is what you can see in the first step. And there's also, and what is usual, they have side-by-side app extensibility apps. So there's an app running anyhow on the BTP, Cloud Foundry in our case. And for this app, we added our data instrumentation, so our data collection library. So if you've heard about OpenTelemetry in the previous sessions, so we have these libraries. They were added to these environments, and these libraries do offer various options to monitor BTP apps on the one hand side, so auto instrumentation, manual instrumentation, and this are the same libraries where also BPMon or business process monitoring will be included, but for sure with a little more manual instrumentation, because the data selection, so which data should arrive in the business process monitoring, this is what needs to be built manually. So which attributes would you like to have in? What is the criteria? Or maybe to say it very technical, what is the select statement you are using? Or which APIs are you calling to get the data? In digital manufacturing, they have a lot of OData services available. So this was also a touch point. So we used the existing infrastructure, which a customer is also capable to use and currently already using for extensions, and added our libraries. So this picture you might know, so this is the architecture behind. And our infrastructure is now receiving the data from the digital manufacturing, is bringing the data into the business process monitoring, and it's a custom-built KPI where it is ending. So this is the architecture behind. And you can then imagine it's not just a click or 4 clicks that it is happening and that everything is going like this, that it is scaling, that it is for all the customers then available. There are steps which we are doing in order to ship or be able to provide such a functionality. And that's also now what I would like to mention. So here I can report and can say our infrastructure, this is ready, because this is really a live demo. The libraries are released, but you can imagine it's not only libraries, it's also the application. And this is exactly where we are now working on. So there's a UI required for you to define the KPI. I could just ask and say to my developer, could you do me for our ALM summit to show something lovely, create me a KPI? That would not work for you. So this is one thing where we're currently working on. And the other topic is around the process map. So we started now with having just an additional end-to-end process. An end-to-end process, other is not the perfect home. And this is the second area where we now will build functionality, because this is then the set in order to be able to use the functionality. So infrastructure ready, this is for us a huge milestone. And now we will work on the other 2 topics, and for sure also then share updates. So this is current state of planning and the next steps. But that's not all what we would like to show you here in the session or give you as takeaway. You can see now the last 2 points of value proposition. So 1 point from my end. So this, what we are providing you here, is the option to bring in, how was the perfect significance, importance for certain attributes. So you can read that sentence much better than me. So it's the option for you to bring in individual things.
Yeah, and on top of that, the extensibility part, which we've already mentioned, so supporting extensions that you might have in your environment. So that also process step that run as part of an extensibility solutions can be considered. And I gave you an example with just a BTP-based app or another third-party app. So that's also another aspect that we see as a huge value in that context. Then the integration of industry-specific business KPIs. I think that was also covered during the demo that I gave you and the explanations that I provided. So here again, we found out that especially in certain industries, there are specific demands when it comes to KPIs. And that also explains why customers approach us and why they say the standard KPIs are not sufficient for us. Because in certain industries, maybe the basic process is pretty much the same, but they have, for example, custom-specific reports with a very complex logic behind that. And that needs to be covered as well, and there will be no one-size-fits-all solution that SAP can provide, and due to that, those custom-defined KPIs are necessary. And yeah, the complex business logic I just mentioned, so that's what we find mainly in certain reports that our customers are using, and that they also want to integrate in their business process monitoring, and for which they want to create their custom-defined KPIs, so that all these aspects are also covered as part of their business process monitoring. Okay, so now it's time to pack your bags, and for the sake of that, I think we have some more information and maybe also some tips. So Stephanie will start.
So what can you now already do? Because this is always the preparation. And I was asked not to stand close to the speakers, so maybe I'll go to this side. Other speakers, okay. Stand in the middle. Yeah. So what you can do now, I can make it a joke, right? You're now all with me, so I got your full attention. Perfect. That was exactly the idea of that move. No, what you can do now is think about a KPI name. This sounds like a tiny thing, but even we are spending time in finding the perfect name of a KPI or a meaningful name. So what should it answer? Then what is the type? So we have backlog KPIs, we have throughput KPIs, we have lead time KPIs and exception KPIs. So find the right format. And there's a lot of information in other sessions available on business process monitoring with the types, so we didn't explain it here. I can also do so after that session if you would like to learn directly. You can also think about where's the data coming from and which attributes do you need. So attributes meaning which columns or which entities details of the business documents, for example, are you sending to us? Is it an ID? Is it a plant? Is it a number? Is it a date? So it's really tricky and it sounds simple, but everything needs to fit into your bag, and you can do that paperwork already now, that requirement and that specification. And if you, in addition, would like to do something on top, so special homework, you can also think about the alerting. So when is the situation critical? What are the thresholds maybe? What should happen? Is it an operations automation? Is it just an email? Is it only an alert? Who would work on such a situation? And for the techies or the developers, start with the open telemetry at SAP. So include the libraries in your application, start with health monitoring, real user monitoring, exception monitoring, and much more, because it will be the same libraries, which we are also using. And this is what you can already now put into your bag.
Yeah, as I promised, we've also some tips for you that some of them might go without saying, some of them might be new to you. So that's all based on previous projects, on the experience that we gathered in projects or with different companies and so on. So first of all, evaluate with business. So as in the entire S4HANA context, this is neither a purely IT nor a purely business topic. So the idea would be that business and IT work closely together, that they discuss the KPIs together, and that they eventually also define the KPIs together. So what they should do is align both the technical and the business view in order to come up with a KPI that really helps the company. It's also about the translation of the technical layer to the business layer. So here again, it's a bit of developing a certain understanding for each other's perspective. Here again, when business and IT work together. One really important tip from my point of view is always question the requirement that the business addresses to you. So from my experience, I know that people are very fast in asking for specific KPIs, and at the end of the day, it's not really used, or it does not provide the value that you would expect. So always question the requirement. Ask the question, what do you do with the KPI? So once you have it, what kind of measures do you derive from that when you have the results of the KPIs? What do you do with it, and how does that help the company improve the business processes? So that's really probably the most crucial tip on that slide. And there again, if you do not get convincing answers, ask yourselves and ask the business whether the KPI is really needed or whether you need to define it in a different way. Yeah, that's actually also what the last bullet point on that slide covers. So what do you want to do with it? How do you want to use it? And how does it help you make your business processes more stable or improve them at the end of the day? Okay, so with that, we are pretty much at the end. Don't forget to make your posts and rate the session. So it's probably your job to say that.
Yeah, it is our session, as you can see. So, but good point. So spread the word. We are there for questions for sure all around the event. Use the hashtag in the app. You can vote. So voting means also it motivates us to do another special show than maybe next year. So the same show is not my thing. We have questions also where we should have now enough time.
Yeah.
And as one of the questions was around the slides, you will find the slides later on in the event app inside. And there's also a few links from my end available in the slide deck around the expert portal. We also have the influencing opportunities, so a link collection with all the places to go to explore the topics, work on the topics, find support, and so on. So we are...
Time for questions.
Yes, good in time. I guess we get a mic.
Thanks. A general question. Would it be possible also to plan to provide flexible thresholds? Calculated thresholds. So we have fixed thresholds, something is good, but it's 20 and it's bad. For example, I had the problem when I worked for a very large retailer. A lot of business KPIs depended on how much stores were open. And this retailer had several thousand stores, and depending on the day, of the week of the day or every day there was another number of stores open. And one of the KPIs was, for example, by 11 o'clock in the morning, you expect one purchase order from every store. And you can only figure it out if you know how much stores are open today. Then I can tell you if every store placed its order. For example, this was one example. Maybe others have similar things. And there was just a question, does the framework allow for flexible thresholds?
That is a very good thought, because and I would love to have also an influence request on that one, just to have the topic documented, because this is exactly what we discussed a few months ago now already within the team. We were thinking about what are capabilities which are maybe, and this is something which you would park into or say this is AI functionality, to suggest you thresholds. This is how we called it. So we have the data now in, you can see trends in our tiles already, but wouldn't it be nice if you suggest the customer what could be a threshold based on the data, based on what we learn. So it's not exactly answering this one, but with your, how did you call it? Can you repeat it one more time? So how you phrased it, the name you gave it, it's directly the flexible thresholds. So it's, from my perspective, a good topic to take away, to work on. It confirms our thoughts. And we do have also in real user monitoring and synthetic user monitoring around change point detection of functionality and dynamic thresholding. And for sure, this is something where we will then exchange internally and also see maybe this is exactly an algorithm also which we can apply. So, but just to be documented would be great if you could phrase it, because I do think we get some votes, right? So your votes are influencing what we are working on, so please vote, because it changes or impacts our prioritization in the planning. Further questions?
I may have missed something, but I presume you're taking standard KPIs from best practice KPIs from HANA system. Mm-hmm. from the throughput backlog indicators, KPI reports.
So
That's the source, isn't it, of the KPIs that have been
we have
monitored
KPIs for S4, for SuccessFactors, Cloud for
Yeah,
customers.
but where are they coming from?
Where they are coming from?
Yeah, from S4, so they're coming from throughput
For
backlog
example,
indicators.
yes, for example,
For
from
example.
S4.
So
Yeah.
if you take a standard KPI and then you modify it to create a custom KPI because you need to, define some particular attributes that are custom to that particular organization, where is the actual KPI built, custom KPI?
In the back end, if I should use that term. So the
So
point
it's
is,
actually built in the source system, right?
yeah,
And then
so
it's imported as if it were a standard KPI. The same process.
let me try to answer what is the architecture, the concept behind. So the custom-defined KPIs, they can come from non-SAP. This is what I demoed. And there's also a roadmap item on ABAP-based ones, to take the S4 case. Let's assume we'll take an S4 private cloud edition. So, and this is where you would like to have a custom KPI, because there's one, you have used all the guidance, there's an extensibility option, you can bring in an own attribute, you did so, and now this attribute is important for you for a customer-defined KPI. Then, with what we are currently working on, you would be allowed to define your own KPI, and for sure you can learn on what is existing, and then you would decide, okay, these are the 10 attributes which we do need, this is the name of the KPI, and then you would also be able to use it in business process monitoring. So definition, these are the UIs where we are currently working on, so define the KPI, and the collection is then what you'll do in the ABAP-based system, and you will get how-to guides. So we will provide documentation and samples on how you can do them, also for the BTP part. I showed it now really early, just to show you it's working, we are working on the topic, but for sure I will not release a feature without documentation, and I cannot, I can see my UA. So the lovely documentation, all the statements and phrases, these are coming by a UA team and my UA, and she will also make sure that we provide something which is helping you and understandable. So this is part of the deck. We cannot release any feature without documentation and guidance and so on.
I fully understand it. Now I'm looking back at Solution Manager, where we had a customer who wanted to define some custom KPIs, and they were built using the standard KPIs and then modified, and then stored in the ECC system and then imported into Solution Manager in the same way.
I get your point. We are now in the Cloud ALM and the Business Process Monitoring, but for sure, why can't you do a copy-paste of ABAP coding? But that's just my thought as a product manager. I'm not a developer, so you will not get any statement from my end that this is exactly the way to go. I have disclaimers everywhere. If I'm staying here, I'm a full disclaimer deck in pink, according to the slide master, which I try to follow as good as possible. And I'll take that as a note. You will find something, but I cannot state anything here.
Okay, great, thank you.
But your thoughts are good. Maybe that is fair? 2 more minutes left. In the back, we have one question.
Hi. Some time ago, I had put something on the influence page, and 1 or 2 of my requests were voted by around 10 or 11 customers like us, and it went in long-term considerations. So any roadmap to that as to when those will come into short-term considerations? Because they are critical for us somehow in the process.
Might it be the table entry counter?
Yes, you remember.
What a coincidence. No. Yeah, I know that influence request, and the point is, so maybe, not sure if all of you know that functionality. In Solution Manager, there was an option where you could do a table entry counter and be notified based on a certain number of entries in a table. That is a very interesting thingy, but on the other hand side, it's always highly individual if we are looking from a Cloud ALM point of view. But what we are currently working on is a framework where you can send us from an ABAP system data into a KPI. And what you are sending us, is it one data record just containing a 25, a 1, or whatever, and just using one attribute? I cannot limit that. I can also not forbid it. And this is why it is long-term, because there's no date in, and there won't be an exact functionality like the table entry counter, but the framework, what we are currently working on, and the infrastructure which is ready, you could use it for that purpose. But you, need to make a meaningful select and maybe also question, is it really making sense to have a KPI which is showing a 1 if there's one data record or not? But this is why it is long-term. Long-term is something like it doesn't mean rejected. It's just not yet in place and not this year maybe. "30 seconds. Otherwise, thank you to my co-speaker. Thank you for joining that session. We are here at the entire event. Won't be the last time. Enjoy the event.